Welcome back to the Seattle Bird Podcast. This is the last week in our 5-part interview series on crows with Dr. Loma Pendergraft, an instructor at the University of Washington. This week, we're focusing on crows' ability to identify faces. Can you explain to the listeners your research about with the crow masks?
Well, I was not the original person who worked at the crow mask. My advisor, John Marsleff, was the one who discovered that crows recognize human faces, and he did this by using masks. So basically what happened was, whenever he started out as a professor here at UW, he started doing research involving crows. I think it had to do with the range of their territories and stuff like that. And as part of that research, he captured and attached lead bands to a bunch of crows all over Seattle. This is just standard bird research practice. It's so you can keep track of individuals, because I don't know about you, but I can't tell individual crows apart. So you have to add little lead bands to them so you can keep track of specific individuals. Well, whenever he went back to check on them, they freaked out. They saw him, they started screaming and dive bombing him. They started treating him as though he was a dangerous threat. And so he was curious, are these birds reacting this way because a person banded them? Are they just attacking all people? Or are they mobbing me because I banded these birds? And so he set this experiment up where he wore a mask and captured crows on campus. And, the crows didn't care about the mask before he captured them. Basically I'm quoting Bane from Batman here. Like, no one cared about me before I put on the mask. Well, the crows didn't care about him when he wore the mask until he captured them while wearing a mask. And, that's a traumatic experience for a bird. We have to use a net launcher to catch these things. And a net launcher uses a rifle blank to propel a net out at high speed. So it's loud, it sounds like a gunshot going off, and then... So yeah, you imagine you're a crow. You're out there with your buddies, you're eating some food, and all of a sudden there's a loud bang, a net flies out of nowhere and pins you to the ground. Some of your compatriots who are lucky enough to escape are all flying around screaming about danger, danger, danger. And then some person comes out, pulls you out from under the net, holds you down, attaches little lead bands to you. You're terrified, but all of a sudden somehow you escape. If crows can remember specific people, he gave them every single reason to remember that mask that he wore. And they most definitely did. Anytime he wore that specific mask on campus, they'd freak out. They'd lose their minds and they'd start dive bombing him. You could wear different masks and they wouldn't react. And, we repeated this experiment with, more lifelike masks. Originally he used a caveman mask, but he also later hired a special effects team from Hollywood to come out and make lifelike latex masks modeled after real people. You would wear those different masks and the crows wouldn't care, but then if you used one of them to catch the crows, they would only ever mob that mask, not the ones that came afterwards. So they definitely remembered people. I took advantage of this by using masks whenever I would catch crows for my own research, but that was mostly just to protect my personal identity and to keep the crows calm. So if I'm keeping crows in captivity, I have to, every day, replace their food, spray and clean their cage and all that. And then sometimes I have to catch them and then put them into other cages or move them or, whatever. So to minimize stress, I would only ever wear a specific mask whenever I was feeding them / cleaning their cages, so they associate that mask as as a food provider. They didn't like it whenever that person was spraying their cages and cleaning the cages, but they were more calm than they would be if the catcher mask came in there. If they saw that mask come in with a net, they knew that one of them was not yet grabbed and removed. But I'd do it. I'd remove the crow. Use it for my experiment. I'd train them to do something, and then I'd return it, and then that mask would go away. And then if I had to go back in there to feed them, I'd put the caretaker mask on, and that kept them calm.
Do scientists know the way that crows recognize faces? What parts of the face do they look at? And could this knowledge be useful for human facial recognition technology?
I'm not entirely sure about the exact details of how a crow recognizes human faces, and I don't even think anyone knows that. That might be a thing that no one's looked at. I do know that distinct areas of their brain are active depending on the circumstance of the person that they're seeing. So if they see a person that they know is dangerous, so for example, if person A captured the crows, they grabbed them, put them in a cage, and took them into captivity, and then they spent a couple of weeks in captivity, learning the identity of person B, who is the caretaker. They liked person B, they don't like person A. If they see person A in an imaging laboratory, we see activation in the amygdala. So that's the part of the brain that's associated with fear. And also other emotions, but mostly fear. If they see person B, the caretaker, who they've learned is someone who provides them with food, you see activity in their associative reward centers. And then if they see a new person, person C, who they've never seen before, but is holding a dead crow, which they know is a dangerous thing, then we see activity in their hippocampus and their visual processing area. So they are staring at that person's face and they're memorizing those facial features.
Interesting. Okay, a lighter question. Have you ever put crows in VR?
No. I know that they will react to things that are on screens, but it's not as real to them as real life. And that's partly because screens and VR stuff are designed for human eyes. So they're only outputting light in 3 wavelengths. All screens emit red, green, and blue light. And all the colors that we see are just different combinations of those 3 different wavelengths. Most birds, crows included, can see 4 different wavelengths: red, green, blue, and ultraviolet. So our screens don't emit ultraviolet because we can't see it. There's no reason to make a screen that emits ultraviolet light. So a crow looking at a screen, it's like it's missing some of the colors that would normally be there.
I never thought about that.